Just want to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about our visiting professor, Dr. John Anderson. Dr. Anderson's a Michigan native, went to Ferris State University. Is he a Bulldog at Ferris State? Then he went to Michigan Medical School.
Didn't think I'd hear that.
Yeah, Northwestern for orthopedics, and then developed an interest in foot and ankle and was off to Harborview to do foot and ankle fellowship. He then returned to Michigan. He's been in Grand Rapids for most of his career since then. He has been very active in education of medical students, residents, and he's co-director of the residency program and also director of the Foot and Ankle Fellowship in Michigan. He's educated over 200 foot and ankle fellows. Research-wise, he's published more than 100 scientific articles as well as chapters. So he's very well accomplished in research. And clinically, he's always ranked as one of the foot and ankle surgeons, not only regionally, nationally, but also internationally. I think it's often said that our success should be measured by the products that we produce. As you know, Dr. Swatsky trained with him, and I think that's confirmation for Dr. Anderson's success. So please join me in welcoming him as he talks this morning on a long, strange trip. Dr. Anderson.
Thanks, Kevin. First, I'd just like to thank you guys for letting me come here to be with you. I mean, this is a very, very big day for the graduating chief residents. It's not probably the biggest day of your life, but it's certainly one of the more memorable days of your life. And it's really an honor and a privilege for me to be able to come here and see your program and meet you guys and help congratulate you and send you off. And kudos, what a tremendous program. I'm so impressed by the research quality and the quantity that's coming out of this institution. And I think that's a testimony to your leadership. But this day, as I was putting together ideas for what to talk to you about, I know this day typically involves people from all specialties, and I thought I'd put you to sleep if I started talking about my project of KOH slides to diagnose fungus toenail infections. So I wanted it to be something that you could remember, and it's not about me, it's about you guys. And I think there's a lot in here for the younger residents as well. It's not just for the seniors, but it's really about the seniors. So congratulations on a job well done. It's a tremendous accomplishment to get here. We've all struggled through high school to get good grades to get into college, and we've all struggled through college to get good grades to hope we get into medical school, and we've all struggled to be the top of the class in medical school, and we've all been fortunate enough to get our dream job matching in orthopedics, which is one of the harder specialties to get into, and you've completed 5 grueling years. That is like mortar fire in the trenches. So your long, strange trip is just beginning, but I figured my talk would kind of tailor around what a long, strange trip we're all on, and I'll highlight some of the long, strange aspects of my life, but I think there's a lot of corollaries and a lot of similarities between this trip that I've been on and the trip you guys are in the middle of right now. So congratulations to all 5 of you. You're all rock stars and should be congratulated for all of your efforts. It's tremendous. A day like this can't go by without acknowledgments. I think we walk on the shoulders of those that preceded us, and you got a lot of giants who've carried this program to where it is and allowed you to get to where you are. And that includes the faculty, the staff, your classmates, your own classmates, even the undergrads below you. They've helped you in so many ways. I think the apples don't fall far from the tree. So you should give your parents a big hug for what they did to get you here. They had a lot to do with this day, and they should be commended. your family members, your mentors, your significant others, they all have to go through so much for you to get to where you are today. So just make sure you thank the people for where you are that helped you get to this point. Without these people, we'd never get to the heights that we get to. So my message to your class, I'll start with a little intro about myself. I got a few short stories that I hope don't go too long. Some things I've learned, and I'll share some parting thoughts. So as Kevin mentioned, I was born and raised in Grand Rapids, grew up on a farm, poor family, large family, didn't know we were poor. We had riches in other ways, but we never felt poor. But in hindsight, I was probably one of the poorer kids that I knew. I just didn't know it. Yeah. And in Michigan, you're kind of split down the middle. You either root for Michigan State or you root for Michigan. So it's go green or go blue. My family, despite being a family of farmers, tended to root for the blue team, even though Michigan State was an agricultural school. So I always found that kind of interesting. And I was fortunate enough to match at the University of Michigan Medical School, which really opened my eyes to a different way of life and a different thought process and a different level of intensity and diversity. People from all over the world and people who are just so smart. So I thought I was pretty smart. In reality, I was very average. And my classmates at the University of Michigan really opened my eyes to all the opportunities that are out there. I was going to be a family practice stock in Lowell, where I grew up, and that was kind of my dream. And then I got to Ann Arbor and it was like, wow, there's all these different things out there. And it took me a while to figure out that orthopedics is like the coolest job in the world. And I was fortunate enough to be successful in medical school to match in orthopedics in Chicago. And now I'm really out of my wheelhouse. I'm way over the tip of my skis because small town West Michigan to Ann Arbor was a big jump. Ann Arbor to Chicago was a huge jump. I got introduced to a whole lot of things in Chicago. This was my graduating class on our graduation day, one of the most memorable days of my life. This was my chairman, Mike Schaefer. Some of the people in the audience remember Mike Schaefer, but he was just a phenomenal guy who recently passed away. And he affected me in so many ways. I didn't realize it until he passed away. And I went to his funeral, as did just about every resident that graduated Northwestern. They flew in from all over the country, and this man affected a lot of lives. And it was just a tremendous experience to see how much honor and acclaim this man received after he passed away. Chicago introduced me to street violence, which is something I'd never seen. This guy actually had 7 12-gauge slugs in his body. I got 5 of them on an AP pelvis. 2 of them were up in the kidneys. So somebody reloaded. But I say all this just because I want you all to think about where you started. We all came from a background where we all had poopy diapers at one time. And this is the youngest picture in existence of me. This is my older brother giving me my first award. Obviously, I was very happy about that. I didn't bother to change my clothes in order to get this picture taken. This picture, I think I was 1 year old, and it was about a year later, I lost my left eye in a traumatic accident. So, this is just a few years ago. This is my wife that I met in Chicago. And a lot of what I want to talk to you about is work-life balance. And we've hit all the highlights today already. We've talked about sleep cycles, and we've talked about joint maintenance and physical health and nutrition. Well, that all comes into work-life balance. And somehow as you get through this process and you get on your journey, one of the harder things you're going to struggle with is work-life balance, because we're all so type A and we all love our job so much. You just can't get enough of it if you love your job that much. But at some point you got to turn the spigot off, and you got to devote some time to all those other things that go into life balance. This is my first marathon I ever ran when I was a chief resident, and I was not a runner. The 2 guys in the picture were. I got coaxed into this. I made a foolish decision and said, yeah, I'll do it with you about 2 weeks before the race. It was one of the more miserable experiences of my life. I can look back at it and say I was overconfident and underprepared, and it cost me. I could barely walk for a week. Yeah. And I swore I'd never run another race in my life because it was just such a miserable experience. It took me a while to figure out it was my overconfidence and my under preparation that made it the most miserable experience. I went on to the University of Washington where I did a foot and ankle fellowship and saw all kinds of beautiful things that were brand new. Alex is very familiar with this picture. It's Harborview Hospital. That was the view out of the office that you get to enjoy every day. Absolutely fabulous. I discovered great coffee and lots of wilderness and beautiful bridges, and certainly enjoyed the life side of the work-life balance, even though we worked very hard and I learned a lot of things. I got to do a lot of things that were very memorable. This is actually looking over the hood of Mount St. Helens 15 years after it blew. So that was the baby lava dome that was rebrewing. And to get that picture, you actually had to crawl over a cornice with somebody strapped onto your feet with a rope. Because you're about 20 feet off the edge of the cliff. And who knows what that cornice is going to do when you crawl out there. But got the picture, got back as fast as possible, and lived to tell about it. These were my mentors in Seattle. These guys changed my life. These were the guys you're going to go out and meet people like this. They were onto some things back in 1990 that were way ahead of their time. Little did I know it. I thought I was going out for the beautiful city, but I met people that changed my life. And eventually I made it back to Grand Rapids, back to my home school. My journey came right back full circle to where it began. And now I'm back in my hometown. I'm not a family practice doc. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm specializing in feet and ankle, which I never thought in the world I would even consider. Wasn't even on my radar before I started my orthopedic residency. My family got bigger. My house got bigger. My expenses got bigger. It was in Grand Rapids. We're going to deep dive a little bit on foot and ankle stuff tomorrow, but it was in Grand Rapids that I started developing my own ideas of the foot and ankle. That essentially carried the torch a little bit further from what I was trained in Chicago and particularly in Seattle. And Alex is probably as adept at giving that talk as I am right now. But I've had the distinct pleasure of sitting in front of a lot of residents and a lot of students and a lot of nursing students and MAs and medical students. And I can tell you that it's what keeps us going. The faculty that you have here are second to none. We do this because we love it. We've got something that I was never going to be an educator. I was not going into academics, but there was an infection in my head that I developed, passed on from my mentors, that just made me more inquisitive about certain things. And your mentors are infecting you with that inquisitiveness. And we hope you go on and do the same thing and move the needle a little further. So you're on this journey to expand your mind, but you got to find a way to do it where you can mix your family and your friends. And it's really not hard. If you look at some of the pictures, you'll see there's a lot of smiles, but in the midst of this journey, there's a lot of things you got to do. And these things can be stressful. You got to buy a house, you got to sell a house, you're all going to move. You got to learn things you don't know anything about. You got to learn about life insurance and disability insurance, and you got to learn about hospital administration, and you got to learn about CPT codes and the business side of medicine. You got to save for the future. You might have kids. You got to figure out how you're going to pay for your kids' college. I mean, these are all stresses in life. And then you're going to go through all that. You're going to have a coach on your kid's soccer team that's just a knucklehead, or you're going to have some partner that's just difficult, who doesn't follow his patients, or there's no end to the bumps that occur on this path. And you think they're ending after your residency, but they're just beginning. You're going to travel on numerous meetings. This one being an easy one, but a lot of them are going to take you to far away, interesting places all over the world, which what a treasure, what a privilege to be able to go out and see the far reaches of the world while we enjoy our profession and meet different cultures and meet other ways of doing things and carving a craft. everywhere I've gone, I've learned something about my craft just by seeing how other people do it. And it really makes the whole thing enjoyable and extremely educational. Yeah. There'll be opportunities to give back. This was after the Haiti earthquake. We were one of the first ones on the field, but what a privilege to be able to go to a foreign country and help put people back together who didn't have any resources. I mean, I would encourage you all to find a way to give back, to use your skill set, your knowledge base, and hopefully in the process, you'll have as much fun as I have. Yeah, my running career actually was just starting with that bad experience. So here in 2014, I ran the Berlin Marathon at a meeting in Germany. Yeah, but there's been so many adventures, so many friends, so many interactions, and so many influences that I'm in debt to and have immense gratitude for. And it's all those people I talked about. It's my wife, it's my family, it's my kids, it's my mentors, it's my administrators. That's my colleagues, my classmates who are still some of my closest friends to this day. You guys will never lose touch with each other because you've been in the foxhole together. Yeah, and 5 years in the foxhole, it's a special bond. So this is one of my runs. This was my run printout on my cell phone. And it was the day before we were going to do this in Grand Rapids. So I'm running the program, and I've got my classmate who's a spine surgeon, very, very prominent in Indianapolis, and he's going to be my guest speaker. He's going to stay at my house. He's on his way to Grand Rapids. I'm going to zip in a quick 5-mile run. I'm going to pick him up. We're going to go have a drink, and then he's going to come back to my house, and we're going to hang out and reconnect. Something went wrong on this run. You can see I either got lost or my phone got lost, but it takes an abrupt end about 3/4 of the way through. Yeah. And you've all heard Ford built tough. Yeah. Fords are built tough, but those of you who have ever hit a deer know what a frightening experience that can be. It wakes you up pretty fast. Well, imagine you're the deer. Yeah. So I got hit by a Ford truck going 60 miles an hour, and that's me in the emergency room. And that's 7 years ago. And Alex remembers this because he was there. Yeah. And that's me in the rehab 2 weeks later with broken arms, broken wrist, broken skull, broken ribs, punctured lung, brain hemorrhage. You look at that list and you look at that face and you think, how does that guy live? Who knows? It's a random act of God that I'm alive. And I'm one of the few guys I know who was able to give a trauma keynote address because he was a trauma patient. Not because I spent 20 years taking trauma call, but because I was a trauma patient. And you learn a lot being a patient. And I think it actually made me a better doctor because I know all the weird things patients go through when you don't know if you're ever going to walk again, you're ever going to use your hands again, you're ever going to feel your fingers or your toes. Are you ever going to be able to pursue your dreams, your passions? And this was a guy that was running 150 miles an hour. Full speed. I did 9 surgeries that day. I had a big event with a big graduation party at my house. My daughter was going to have a big party the next day. I spent that whole weekend in the ICU. And I spent the next 6 weeks in a wheelchair wondering if I was ever going to be able to do anything. And you think a lot of weird things, that the patient who is down and out, you see it from the medical side, but the patients are going through all these life balance equations. What are you going to do if you can't go back to work? Geez, I'd love to be a carpenter. I'd love to be a teacher. I want to be a salesman. What are you going to do? Yeah, which begs the question, if today was your last day, what would you do differently? Would you do different today if you knew this was your last day? And somebody's probably asked you that before, but I never thought I would ever ask that question. I was the healthiest guy I knew, but literally it was almost my last day. And for 6 weeks, I couldn't get out of a chair. Somebody had to clean me and bathe me, and I had 2 broken hands, couldn't move. What are you going to do now? If you're not going to be an orthopedic surgeon, what are you going to do? I had to sit and think about that for a long, long time. And would you do something different? So I would challenge you all to look back and say, if you could do something different what would it be? And if not, what would you do going forward to take advantage of your short time? Life is so short. Yeah. How are you going to make today the best day of the rest of your life? And I say that often when people say, how you doing? And my answer since that truck is today's the best day I've ever had for the rest of my life. Every day is my best day. It's another day. And look at me now, you'd never know, right? I mean, for God's sakes, it's ridiculous. Yeah, but when I look back, there really wasn't anything I would have done differently. I was living my dream. I was that little kid with a poopy diaper thinking I was going to ride a tractor on a farm, maybe get into college, maybe go to med school. Went on a journey that I never possibly imagined, traveled all over the world, did a lot of research, and have given many speeches. Yeah, none of that was anticipated. It was my journey. It just took me somewhere. But all of those steps were an opportunity to reach a new height. If anybody that's ever seen the movie The Alpinist, if you haven't seen it, this is one of the mountains in that movie. It's one of the better movies I think I've seen in quite a while, but I would encourage you all to read it because that's a guy that lived life. And he definitely got outside of his comfort zone, maybe too much. I asked you, how are you going to change the world? Try and give back. But you all are the smartest people on planet Earth. You can change the world. It may be small, it may be large. How are you going to do it? Figure out a way to change the world because it's not that hard to change the world and make it better. Your staff have done it. This university has done it. The faculty have done it. The research you're seeing is changing the world. It's making people better. You guys, you've done it with the research projects you've had, but you can't stop there. That means you got to grow. You got to get out of the poopy diaper and you got to get into a clean situation. You got to keep moving forward. Moving forward means don't stand still. So this is the very first marathon I ran in 2013. This is the last marathon I ran 6 months after I got hit by a truck. One, I was disappointed, miserable experience. I was absolutely frustrated with my time. The other was the best day of my life. The last one took twice as long as the first one. My expectations were a little different. But to be able to run a marathon with my 5 kids after being in a wheelchair, not knowing if I was ever going to walk, was just a tremendous experience. It's more of a resetting of your expectations and your guidelines. But I was so happy to be able to do it again. It was just a treat. Expand the mind. I've spent a lot of time learning my craft, foot and ankle surgery. Yeah, sometimes a bunion surgery is a little mundane and routine for me now. I've got to find other things to get outside my comfort zone. Golf is one of those things. I can still play golf. Anybody that's played knows it's way tougher than orthopedics. So I try to spend as much time as I can now, taking iron and greens every day. Yeah, but I still haven't stopped learning. Leave a legacy. That may be your kids. That may be your institution, that may be your community, but do something significant and make the world a better place. And if you do so, you're going to change history. This man changed history. This is Ted Hansen, who from Harborview, kind of built that hospital from the ground up when it was just a low-level county hospital that nobody wanted to work at. And he started doing things at Harborview Hospital that just made sense to him. And he was criticized for years for doing things like plating open fractures and rodding femurs immediately and taking people straight to the OR and amputating mangled legs. All of those things got him reported to the state board and to the authorities, but it made sense to him. He then did the same thing in the foot. He stopped taking trauma call. He transitioned to the foot and he started doing things in the foot that had never been done. And now he's got 3rd and 4th generation descendants of things that he taught me and I've taught Alex, and Alex is now teaching you guys. And each step along the way, we're trying to refine these concepts and principles. And that's now a baton that's getting passed to you. You have the knowledge, the skill set. You're in a unique spot. You know a lot of things that a lot of people don't know. You've got a responsibility with that to push the needle a little bit further. So this opportunity you've been given is really just the beginning. Yeah, you're in the top of the first inning. Your game has not really even started yet. Yeah, there's a whole world of experiences out there waiting for you. And this is such an early stage of the game that you just got to wake up every day saying, last game didn't count. Now it's first bat and we got to win this game. So I'll talk a little bit about the Schwatzky zone. Schwatzky's famous in Grand Rapids, as you can imagine. Yeah. So he came on my service in his third year. So I was early in my recovery. And it was summertime, and I had a fellow who was working with me. And my daughter had just graduated at the University of Michigan, and Mike Bloomberg was the keynote address speaker. And he was telling the story of in his 40s, he's married, he's got 3 kids, he's got a secure job, but it's not the job he really dreamt of doing. He always wanted to break out on his own and do something big, but he was always afraid to get out of the comfort zone and give up his guaranteed salary because he was worried about losing his income and having to move out of his condominium, and who knows what could happen. Well, then the economy went down, he gets fired, and he wrestled with this idea. I should just take another job. No, 30 years I've been wanting to do something on my own. This is my chance. This is my chance to do it. So he did it. And it just happened to be when the internet was coming of age, and he starts a data collection company in the financial services industry and becomes one of the 10 richest guys in the world. Now he's like Warren Buffett. He's trying to figure out how to give his money away and what he can do to use it. But his point was, if I didn't step outside my comfort zone when that happened, Bloomberg News wouldn't exist. Yeah. And his challenge is the same one I challenge my kids to, and the same challenge I challenge you guys to, is you got to figure a way every day to get outside your comfort zone. Find the things that make you the most afraid. You're most scared of failing. You're afraid you can't tackle. Those are the things that make you feel most alive. And if you continually back away from those things, you're giving up on opportunity. So you've got to just continue to push yourself into things that you know are hard, going to be hard. For me, running marathons was one of those things. I started running marathons because fixing bunions became too easy for me. And running marathons were never easy. Yeah. So I would go out and run because it pushed me into an awkward, uncomfortable zone. And I'm telling Schwatzky this story while we're doing a real complicated foot reconstruction, and I'm putting screws into the subtalar joint. And I'm outlining all these angles, and he's firing the screw, and I'm not letting him use C-arm or cannulation. And I'm drawing all the pictures out for him. And time was of the essence because we had 10 cases that day. So I'm like, Schwatzky, come on. You got it. Come on. Keep up. And he visibly starts sweating. While I'm telling the story of Michael Bloomberg's get out of your comfort zone. And I'm like, Schwatzky, look at you, man. The nurse comes over and dabs his forehead. And I'm like, you're in that zone right now. And he's like, Dr. Anderson, I am so in that zone. I am so uncomfortable right now. And I want to live here for the rest of my life. I want to stay in this zone. So for the next 3 months, it was like, all right, we got to go get in that zone somehow. So he would go running with me when I was in my recovery. And now it lives in infamy as the Schwatzky zone. Every third year resident comes through and they get a little sweaty when things get tight. And I talk about the Schwatzky zone. And our current residents, half of them don't even know who Schwatzky is, but he's this god that sits on a pedestal because I usually name things after things the residents do that are really silly, like they forget to staple a wound, or they put a clamp on a thigh, or they do something that's like they turn their brain off just for a second. And there are very few residents that get through the program with something that's notable and memorable. And Schwatzky was one of the few that managed to do that. So you guys are lucky to have this guy, and he hasn't changed a bit. So I'm going to wrap it up. Your journey is going to take you around the world and back through time, just like mine, just like all the other faculty. Yours is just beginning. Be grateful for what you got. This is a treat. I had mine taken away from me briefly. I couldn't imagine how fortunate I was just to experience the things I experienced before it got taken away from me. What an honor, what a privilege. And the days where you got that cranky patient or administrator just giving you grief and you just want to call it in and become a farmer, you got to go back to where you started and remember the poopy diaper guy that just couldn't wait to get into medical school. Because you're going to have those days, but you just got to remember how bad you wanted it and what a privilege it is to do it. Stay humble. Don't ever get so full of yourself that you can't get beaten down. It happens every day. It happens on a regular basis in this field. You're going to have patience. You're going to have outcomes. There are things that are going to happen that are going to humble you every day. So stay humble, but enjoy the small things and treasure the journey. It doesn't matter where you end up. It's just, how do you get there? Maintain your integrity. You can't get that back once you give it up. Stay in your wheelhouse, stay in your strike zone, but get outside the strike zone enough to push the envelope and make yourself uncomfortable. You're going to get some losses. You got to move on from those. You're going to get some base hits. Take them and move on and step up to the plate and do it again, because every next day is a new inning. And if you continue to play like it's your first inning, you're going to do great things. Aim high, never settle. Don't stop trying. So I congratulate the graduates. I congratulate all the residents that got into this program, because it's a phenomenal program. And the graduates who are moving on, I wish you good luck and Godspeed. And I hope to see you along the way. Thank you.
Excellent. Great journey. And I'm sure there's some questions.
Yeah.
Alex, how much were you sweating that day? Is that a change of scrubs?
Real problem in the OR.
Sweats.
Yeah, he's also one of those guys that in between cases would drop and do 20 push-ups just to get a little
You can
exercise.
still do that.
Yeah, with one hand.
Perhaps. Or slapping his back in between.
So
hand behind his back.
he was a unique resident.
So much what you said is so true. That's good.
Okay.
Be around this afternoon. I'm sure people will have some personal questions
Great.
to ask you about. Thank you again. Well, they're loading up Coach John Cook's slides. Just a little introduction about Coach Cook. He's been in Nebraska quite a while, and you probably think that he's a Nebraskan, but he actually grew up in Chula Vista, California, just south of San Diego. And it was pretty clear early on that he was an exceptional athlete. He was quarterback of their football team, and also one of the strong forwards, a 6'3" forward on the basketball team. And apparently he and his brother maybe didn't dominate San Diego, but he played a lot of good high school basketball there, to the extent where he was recruited to the University of San Diego on a scholarship. And at that time, San Diego had just become a Division I school. So it just reflects on the talent that Coach Cook had and was recognized by the coaches there in San Diego. As he finished up his career as an athlete, he was really thinking about coaching, and he started out coaching some of the high school football teams in the San Diego area. But he wanted to teach as well, and perhaps there was a little monetary incentive there because teachers and coaches made a lot more than just the isolated coaches. The challenge was the coaching job that he took wasn't coaching high school football or basketball, but it was coaching girls volleyball. He and his brother had played some beach volleyball with a couple of other friends of theirs. I believe it was the Ashworth brothers, started the golf industry clothing line later. And of course, as you can imagine, he quickly developed a successful basketball team. And I think they had a streak where they had 90 consecutive victories. And when you're a great volleyball coach in Southern California, you might get noted by somebody like Terry Pettit. And it wasn't long before he was offered a job to come to Nebraska in late 1980s. So he started out as an assistant here in 1988. They had some very good seasons and was lured to Wisconsin because then he could be a head coach. and brought Wisconsin up to a very competitive team, played the regionals in Lincoln against Nebraska. And although Wisconsin got beat, when he met with Coach Pettit later, he was offered the job with the thought that he'd become the next head coach in 2000, which he did. There's no question he's been extremely successful. He's had 4 national championships, I believe 10 Final Fours, 7 of which they played in the finals. So he's got a better than 50% average in finals, which is amazing just to win one, but to have such an amazing average. He's had 60 All-Americans, 19 academic All-Americans, twice voted the American Volleyball Coaches Association Coach of the Year, and in 2017 was elected into the Volleyball Coaches Hall of Fame. What a record. But when asked about his record and things, he quickly deflects the personal success and said, this is about the Nebraska volleyball program, not about one of us. And not only is he an outstanding coach, but he's in my work with him, he's an outstanding person. And it's really a thrill to have him here talk to us about this Dream Like a Champion. I think it fits well with our other visiting professors talk as well. So Coach, we're excited and thank you.
Okay, are we dialed up here for this? Well, it's an honor to be here. I'm trying to figure out how I got into this. I'm a volleyball coach, but I wore white today because maybe I'll be a doctor of volleyball at the end of this. Or, Dr. Anderson, that was a great speech. And in preparation for today, I called some doctor friends of mine. I asked them, who spoke at your graduation? They couldn't remember. I asked my 2 kids who graduated from Nebraska, who spoke at your graduation? They couldn't remember. So I know I'm going to remember your talk, and I think you're going to remember mine once we go through it, because I see a lot of parallels as we go through this that I think kind of similar journeys here. But I'm going to bring it to you from a coach's perspective. And I like to communicate. I have to communicate with college kids. Their attention spans aren't very long. They're not very good listeners. We do a lot of it visually through video, sending messages. I use other things in their world that help them connect. So I'm going to do some of that with you. But again, when Dr. Garvin asked me to do this, I thought, okay, what's he thinking here? Maybe because, you know, I was a first-gen graduate at Nebraska. Maybe because my kids graduated from there. Maybe he wants an NIL deal. I know he doesn't want to play golf with me because I'm not very good. Or maybe, and then he sticks me right before lunch. So this is always the speaker's nightmares go right, you know, lead up to lunch hour. And I know you guys have been grinding here today. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you guys accomplished. You guys have been going 13 years grinding on this. And, you know, in volleyball and coaching, we call that the 1,000-hour rule or 10,000-hour rule. You know, to be a great athlete, and there's a book about it. 10,000 hours is what you got to do. And I'm sure you guys are on that path and on that journey. And then where's Dr. Rodell? Okay. You remember me?
I do.
Where'd we meet?
We met in the OR.
Yeah. OR. And then I remember you came to my room and checked on me and because I asked Dr. Garvin right away, I said, this is the same guy, right? So we met before, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So this is a book that I wrote, and again, as Dr. Garvin mentioned, I grew up in Chula Vista, California. If you watch Narcos, you'll know where Chula Vista is. Right on the border. I grew up. My mom was 17 and my dad was 18 when I was born. College was never an option. So I want to share this with you because I want you to know why I coach and why I wanted to be a coach. And a coach took me aside and said, I think you can go play college sports. And I said, what do I have to do? He said, well, you got to pass the SAT and you got to get recruited. So I was getting recruited and I failed the English version of the SAT test. So I thought I was a dummy. And an English teacher took me aside and tutored me for the whole rest of my senior year. And the last shot in May, when I could take the SAT test, I passed it. And I made a vow to myself someday I'm going to prove to people I'm not a dummy. And this was a book that I wrote. We actually had a second edition on it. And it's a lot about the experiences of coaching and at Nebraska. And again, one of my mentors was Coach Osborne. He's written 3 books. And I talked to him about doing this because people kept telling me, you need to write a book and put some of this down. And so I'm very proud of this. And this is why this is such a, I have so much respect for you guys. I mean, it's just like you just hit the Super Bowl field goal. You just hit the NBA final shot. You just spiked the final to win a national championship in volleyball. I mean, it's a hell of an accomplishment. And like Dr. Anderson said, I hope you appreciate it, enjoy it. And, like Dr. Garvin said, we've won a lot of Final Fours and national championship matches. All I know is we just lost the last one by 3 points. That's all I remember right now. But I got to go back and think about some wins after hearing Dr. Anderson talk. So I don't know how many of you know anything about Nebraska volleyball.
Nebraska Volleyball, a program built on ultimate trust, sacrifice, and relentless pursuit of greatness. A proud fan base that has built an NCAA women's record sellout streak for 20 years and counting. A tradition-rich history with 5 national championships and 34 conference titles. A nation-leading 98 all-time AVCA All-American Award winners. A program that has produced 9 Olympians and 6 Olympic medalists. At Nebraska, volleyball is more than just a game. It is a passion. It represents what trust, commitment, and love can achieve. At Nebraska, we are family, the coaches, the players, and the fans. We are in this together. At Nebraska, champions are formed in the summer and crowned in the winter. At Nebraska, big dreams become big realities through hard work, sacrifice, and trust. There is no place like Nebraska.
All right, a little bit about my world in Nebraska volleyball, and that's a big deal here. So I'm going to take you kind of through my journey, and if I have a second life, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. And after you hear some of this, you're going to know why. So on one of my volleyball trips to South Lake Tahoe, we went up there and played. I was dating my wife at the time. We went up, played in the beach tournament, and then we decided to spend a few days in Tahoe and hike. Well, this article is about me. I went off this cliff right here, this waterfall. Went down 100 feet. This is, we had hiked all day in a place called Desolation Wilderness. And it's up above this Cascade Lake, above these falls. It's a very remote, tough area. We came back, we were hanging out at the top of these falls, and I won't go into detail, I'll call it a rock climbing accident, but I was being stupid. And we hadn't eaten all day, and I just lost consciousness and fell over backwards and went off that waterfall. And you talked about like miracles, okay? And so I ended up at the bottom, I'm hanging off a rock. My brother, my future wife and his girlfriend were on top. He ran down, found me. I was laying upside down. I was still conscious. And he goes, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Okay, here's what happened." I broke some teeth. And I think I dislocated my hip. So, but I'm hanging upside down, so I'm bleeding out of my mouth. And so he gets underneath me, and for 3 hours, he had to support me. And if you ever seen athletes cramp, he started cramping, okay? And that'll be an important part here in a second. So part of this, what happens here is my wife and his girlfriend are trying to find me, and they're calling my name because they're in shock. And ironically, there's a guy coming down where we had just come from named John, because they're screaming my name. They're trying to find me down there. He goes, "Up here." So they run back up thinking I crawled back up to the top of these falls. Well, this guy happened to be a respiratory therapist at Barton Hospital in South Lake Tahoe. So he came down. This is now getting dark. He builds a fire. And he sends my wife to run down to this lake right here. And you have to go all the way around the lake to get to the road. So we have no cell phones. There's no cell phones back then. So she starts running, and there's a guy fishing right at the bottom of this lake. He's in a 14-foot aluminum boat. And she says, "Hey, my boyfriend's fallen. We need to get help." Happens to be a sheriff. So I've got a guy building a fire, keeping us warm, a sheriff fishing, he radios in. And again, it took 3 hours. They got 24 guys up there, put me in one of those basket things, and started still hauling me down because it was still really steep there. They get me down to the lake and they put me in the 14-foot aluminum boat that this sheriff was fishing in. And they get in, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. He's in my face. He'd been drinking. I could smell it. And he goes, and it's just pitch black now. And I go, where are you taking me? He goes, we're going to go the other side. There's an ambulance waiting. And I said, you sure you know where you're going? He goes, hey, if we tip this thing over, crash, you're going straight to the bottom. So don't worry about it anyway. I'm strapped in this battle. He gets me out of the ambulance and I get into South Lake Tahoe Hospital. And this is the doctor who's on call. Does anybody know who this is? This is Dr. Stedman. And if you guys have done your history on orthopedics, he's one of the top guys ever because he's dealt with a lot of the USA ski team. And he was doing his work at Tahoe at the time. Now he has a Stedman clinic in Vail. But he was ahead of his time back then because he was very aggressive on how to rehab patients. So I think when he started, maybe, and again, maybe you guys, the older doctors in here would know more, but he was ahead of his time and really pushed these skiers in rehab right after surgery, get them up, get them going. And I think had a lot of impact on orthopedic surgeons. What was great was this guy happened to be my doctor. And so I'm going to tell you this part of it because this is I remember Dr. Rodell, okay? And I got my hip done here and he was there. Dr. Stedman, I was coaching football at the time, played for Bear Bryant. If you've seen the movie, The Junction Boys, he went through that. And then his third year, he quit because he wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And he knew football wasn't going to get him there. But he went through The Junction Boys with Paul Bear Bryant. It was really tough. Like half of them couldn't even make it through. So we talked football every day. And this is me, 9 weeks in traction. They drilled, I'd broken my femur in 9 places, compound fractured it, broke my jaw, separated my shoulder. This is me for 9 weeks, Dr. Anderson, in traction. You can see how they rigged all this up. And every day he would wheel me outside at South Lake Tahoe. This is in July and August, September. And so I could sit in the sun. And then he did something that I'm not sure you guys get this in medical training. There was a skier named Pete Patterson, who was one of the top downhill racers in the world at that time. He had broken his femur and he had come back to see Dr. Stedman for a final checkup and turn him loose to go start skiing and training. He sent, and I was at the bottom when Dr. Stedman told me, he said, we're pretty in traction. It looks like it's healing pretty good. This is after 3 weeks. He goes, I'm going to leave you there. And I'm like, okay, well, how long am I going to be here for? He goes, at least another 6 weeks. And I wanted to end it right there. There's no way I can do this for 6 more weeks. Pete Patterson comes in later that afternoon and he sits down with me and he says, hey, I've been through this. He says, here's what you got to do. You got to start reading. We're going to get you some music and we're going to start lifting weights. So he brought in weights for me so I could lift in this bed and work out every day. And then the other part of this miracle, food processors that just come out. And I'm going to share this with you because hospital food sucks. They're feeding me Jell-O every day. And I'm losing weight. My mom buys a food processor, moves up to Tahoe, and starts making meals and pumping vitamins in them and grinding them up because my mouth was wired shut from broken jaw. All I could eat was what was through my teeth. So there was my mom started nutrition rehab in this country. I really believe it helped me heal really, really well. So very, very lucky. And this is my first experience with orthopedic surgery and Dr. Stedman. And anyway, just so lucky to have a guy like that So again, as Dr. Anderson said, you never know when you're going to make an impact on somebody's life. Think outside the box. By him, Pete Patterson probably saved me mentally to get through that. And those are the little things that make a big difference in people's lives. My next adventure, after I came here as an assistant, I got hired as assistant coach of the USA men's volleyball team. And this is the 1992 Barcelona Olympic team. Several of these guys at the time, they were playing overseas for 9 months, making millions of dollars playing volleyball. And then they would come back for 3 months and be the USA team in the summer. We went all over the world. We went to Russia, China, Cuba. This is back in the early 90s, all over Europe playing. This team, we won the bronze medal. But here was the challenge. When they hired me, they said, hey, John, you're going to be assistant coach. You're in charge of block and defense, and you're in charge of our strength training program. We were based in San Diego at the time, so we had a place to train. And I knew nothing about how to train these guys, men. I coached women. I had a great experience here in Nebraska with Husker Power, with Boyd Epley and those guys, but this is a whole different ballgame. And probably half these guys were over 30 years old, still playing at the highest level in the world, but they were beat up. They had all kinds of issues. So I'm like, how the heck am I going to do this? I'm coming from a women's program. These guys are going to think, who the hell's this guy? So I found this guy in San Diego, Peter Goskew. And Peter Goskew was the youngest Marine ever to become a major in the history of the Marines. He was in Vietnam, he got blown up. He was in a hospital, rehabbing in an Army hospital or a Marine hospital, however they call those, for a year. And nobody was helping him. So he decided on his own, how the heck am I going to rehab myself so I can live a normal life? So he started studying anatomy. He started studying rehab. I think he studied Buddha principles or the yogis and those types of things. He just started doing everything he could and he rehabbed himself back. So he got this method of potential rehabilitation. And then he started working with golfers in San Diego. He was in San Diego and these wealthy guys and Jace, you're going to Torrey Pines, right? Where's Jace? Torrey Pines, right? San Diego. He was right there. I know right where you're going. I know some doctors that were there when I was out there coaching. But he was helping a lot of the rich people in that area, Rancho Santa Fe wives, so they could play better golf. Well, then Jack Nicklaus hurt his back right before a big tournament, called Pete. Pete flew out wherever this tournament was, rehabbed him for a couple of days. Jack Nicklaus went and won the tournament. He became famous. I think he's written 5 books. It's called the Egoscue Method. But this is what I learned from him in coaching, and I want to impress upon you guys as doctors. You guys are trained to come in. I broke my leg. You're trained to come in and fix it. But I see athletes every day. Their knee hurts. They have tendonitis. Their ankle hurts. Their back is sore all the time. What's causing that? Okay. And then he looks at everything as what's the cause? You know, those are the symptoms of what's the cause. And the best doctors I've been around will look at that instead of like, okay, we're just going to fix it and shoot it up. But doc, why is her back hurt? What's causing? Is it the shoes? Is it how we're training? Is it the surface we're on? So think about, you know, what's the cause of a problem, and always look at it that way. And this guy's, you know, he's helped hundreds of athletes, thousands of athletes, elite athletes, all from all walks of life. He's retired now. His institute's still going. It's based in San Diego. They have clinics all over the United States, all over the world. And he now consults with San Francisco 49ers. And one of his prized pupils that he trains is John Lynch, who played for the Denver Broncos. And he's the general manager of the 49ers right now. And if you watch John Lynch play, they'll tell you, if you talk to NFL guys, he's one of the hardest hitters ever in the history of NFL football. Because Pete trained that guy, and I actually worked out with him at Torrey Pines High School. Again, Jace, right where you're going, right? It's like 3 miles down the road. I saw what he did. He did unconventional training methods, very little weight. It was all just kind of like think of a jungle gym training these pro athletes. So again, thinking outside the box, thinking of the symptoms. And then there's Dr. Garvin. And it was probably 3 years ago, I called and got an appointment with him because the orthos, our team orthos in Lincoln wouldn't touch me. And I need my left hip replaced or fixed. And I walked into Dr. Garvin, got an appointment with him. Took quite a while, but I walked in. He goes, I knew you'd be coming through that door someday. I go, how'd you know that? He goes, I've watched you walk at the volleyball matches. It's been getting worse, hasn't it? So again, another tremendous opportunity for me to be with what I recommended several people to him. He's world-class. And what was fascinating for me was I didn't have a normal hip. And remember, the guys in Lincoln wouldn't touch me. They told me, you got to go to Omaha. And because I had a very challenging surgery, the way that my leg had healed or femur and trochanter and all that. And he made me believe this was all going to work. And it worked great. He wasn't sure how we were going to do it. I think we had 5 hips out there you were thinking about using. And Dr. Rodell was in there, and there were some other guys, and I was just so impressed with the team, the med center, how they took care of me. It was an incredible experience to go through. So anyway, I'm very grateful for him. And again, this is why it's such an honor to be here. So I'm going to share some coaching secrets with you. I've been coaching a long time. And I think coaches at a high level are very similar to orthopedic doctors. We're type A, we go hard, we're after it, we compete, and we're on to the next battle, and we're not afraid to work hard. So, but I want to share some things like Dr. Anderson did that kind of have resonated with me over time. And these are secrets that I share with other coaches as well. First of all, attitude of gratitude. We know if you're grateful for everything, you'll be happier. And I recruit players that have been given everything. They've been told how great they are. They've never experienced failure or very little failure by the time they get to Nebraska volleyball, because we're recruiting the best of the best. And I try to get them to understand you have to be grateful for all this opportunity and all the things that you're given. And they are spoiled, I will admit it. But if I lecture them like that, they think, oh, this is my dad giving me a lecture. They tune me out. So I use Chick-fil-A. You guys know that Chick-fil-A is the #1 most profitable franchise you can own in America. And the reason is because 94% of the time you go into a Chick-fil-A, they make you feel appreciated. And I actually flew on a flight. I didn't even know what Chick-fil-A was, but when they opened in Lincoln, my players camped out at 4 a.m. to be the first ones in line. And I had flown 6 weeks earlier with a guy coming to train the work there. And I don't know if you guys go there, but they tell you it's my pleasure to serve you. But they make you feel good. They make you feel grateful. So I use this with our players, make everybody feel like when you go into a Chick-fil-A. And we're doing camps right now. This is our 10th day of camps. And about every 3rd day, we use Chick-fil-A to feed the camper kids. They love it. They love it. And but anyway, attitude of gratitude. And this is a hard thing to do, but I loved his picture of everybody in the team, but appreciate those nurses. I think nurses are angels and what they go through, but appreciate the people that are helping you and working with you. And use that attitude of gratitude. The second thing is the longer I coach, the less I know. So as Dr. Garvin mentioned, my first year here, 2000, we went undefeated and won the national championship. The only 3 teams have ever done that before in the history of college volleyball. I thought, this is easy. We're going to do this every year. 21 years later, I mean, I've learned through COVID, I've learned more about coaching through the COVID thing than I did in the previous probably 19 years. But I tell myself this all the time because I want to keep learning. And I want to get better. And I think it keeps you from burning out. And it keeps you humble. And it also always keeps you try to get better and better. So remind yourself of that. And it's a cool world when you get to go out there and learn from people. And then this thing, I think, is you guys have already figured this out, but you never know when you're making an impression on somebody. I got on a flight a year ago going to Denver I was actually going to Denver to San Diego to recruit. I get on the Denver flight. This guy sits next to me on this plane at 6:30 in the morning. And he says, "Hey, coach, you remember me?" I said, "Sorry, I don't." He goes, "I was on your first middle school boys basketball team, Francis Parker, 1982. I go, "Yeah, that was a fun team. It was one of the first teams I ever coached." And so he told me a little bit about what was going on in his life and so on. And of course, I'm 6:30 in the morning, I got to recruit for the next 12 hours when I get there. And I really didn't want to talk to him. I kind of gave him the look like, okay, just let me sleep. And he goes, "Hey, do you remember the first or the story you used to always tell us?" And I said, "No, help me with that." And he goes, "You talked about the greatest leader of the greatest civilization wanted to pass down why they were so successful. And so he had the smartest guys work on it. And they worked on it. They got it down to about 10 pages. And he said, too complicated. We got to make sure everybody can remember this generation after generation." So they got it down to one sentence. There ain't no free lunch. And I've got to instill this in our players. Nobody's going to give you anything. And same thing, you guys have this attitude. There ain't no free lunch. You got to go get it. And again, for young people, this is a hard concept for them to understand in the way they're raised now and how kids grow up. There ain't no free lunch. And then you have to have a team within a team. So I use an Indy car as an example. This is Nebraska Volleyball's the Indy car. I'm driving it. I've got to have this great team around me. So I've got a psychiatrist, I've got a former player, my wife, Coach Osborne, but I've got people that are helping me be the best I can be. You can't do it on your own. So surround yourself with people that are going to make you better and make you great. And the other thing that I want to kind of share in this team within a team, at some point, you're really going to need those people. And Dr. Anderson's already talked about it. And I'll tell you a quick story. 2009, we had one of the greatest seasons ever in 2008. We get to spring of 2009, I wake up one morning and it's like the world's upside down. I don't feel right. Something's wrong. They take me in. I go see our team doctor. He sends me right away to St. E's. They start checking my heart. Anyway, something wasn't right. So I went through all these tests and I started going around to see all these doctors. I saw a kidney guy. I saw a neurosurgeon. I didn't see an orthopedic, but something wasn't right. And every time I'd go talk to one of these doctors, I would say, "Hey, how do you handle burnout and the stress and everything?" And they would go, "I don't." And then I go to Coach Osborne, who was our athletic director at the time. And I said, "Coach, how did you handle stress and when you were coaching and the long hours and the expectations?" He goes, "John, I had a heart attack when I was 52. So it hit me. He sent me to Mayo Clinic. Went through all the stuff up there. I come back, you know what it was? It was stress and burnout. That's what they concluded. So I went into what's called cognitive behavior therapy. The head person of the whole country is actually in Lincoln at the university. Changed my life, found my fire again, started feeling better. But at some point, you're going to hit the wall. These indie guys hit the wall. So what's your plan? Or can you prevent that by being around people that are going to help you from that happening? And now I pay attention to what I eat, yoga, meditate. Of course, we're instilling this in our players as well, but you have to do things. And the other big thing I would encourage you to do is get a hobby. So after all this happened, I went and got my pilot's license. I started with guitar, didn't work, got my pilot's license. Now I'm into horses. So the horses are amazing animals. And it's just, and what really prompted all this, there's a place called Stillwater Farms down south of Lincoln. They take muscular dystrophy kids, paralyzed people, and they put them on these horses, and I've seen them change their lives. So I'm fascinated with horses and how to work with horses because I want to be a better coach. It's helping me be a better coach working. I could talk all day about horses, but have a hobby, something that when I'm riding those horses, when I'm flying a plane, I don't think about Nebraska volleyball. I'm just thinking about in that moment what I'm doing right there. So I encourage you all to get a hobby. And something else that's we really stress is with each other, for each other. You guys are all going to be working with teams. So if you can make it where everybody's working with each other, for each other, and I'm trying to get a volleyball team to do that. And I'm going to show you an example here. This is our 2017 team. The beginning of the year, we didn't look like this. Watch how they interact and communicate with each other after a point. They wouldn't come together. They were apart. And we lost back-to-back matches. And I thought the world was coming to an end. The season was going to be done. We weren't going to make the NCAA tournament. We had this talk. We worked through some things. We started with each other, for each other. We're going to commit to that the rest of the year. Not only did we go on to win the national championship, we went on and won 32 straight matches over 2 years. Just to put This team had no business winning a national championship, but they really embraced us with each other, for each other. And anyway, get your teams to be with each other, for each other. We actually got the patent on that in the state of Nebraska, so we can continue to use it with our teams, put it on shirts, and any other place we want to use it. And again, this is how I communicate with them to show them this is what a team looks like that's playing with each other, for each other. All right, another big thing in your world is trust. So I told you I got my pilot's license. Runways are built for planes to take off into the wind and land into the wind. In Nebraska, most runways are going north-south because the wind blows north or south. But when we get a storm, the wind's going to blow across the runway. So when I was going through my pilot training, and I'm sure you talked about you sweating. First thing I did crosswind landings. We went out to Crete. It was in the winter, it was icy, the wind's blowing across the one runway. And this is what you have to do. You have to fly a plane sideways, and the last second you straighten it out. It took me 2 hours until I finally made my first landing. We flew back to Lincoln. I got out and said I quit. And my guy who was training me now flies for Southwest Airlines. But this is what you got to do. You got to fly sideways, and if you're on that plane, you're feeling that sideways, the wind's blowing. Otherwise, if you don't, you'll blow the plane right off the runway. So I got out of that plane. I said I quit. His name's Clay. He goes, John. He didn't. I know what he wanted to say was like, you're a big wuss, you know. But what he said was, you just have to trust your training. And that really changed my world in regards to coaching and how I communicated with our players. So our team and your team have to trust, you have to trust your coaches or your mentors. You got to trust in your game plan, what it is. And when you're doing your thing, you got to trust you're doing the right thing. And then you got to trust in your training. And you guys are getting great training, but go back to that. And so when it's match point, and our players are back there serving, it's just them and the volleyball, they got to trust their training. If they don't, they're going to miss the serve because of the pressure and the expectations and how much is riding on it. So again, we can talk about that, but I'm going to give you some examples of what really trust here is. And on our teams, we try to get it one step further, which is ultimate trust. And so I asked them, and because we got 6 people, 900 square feet, the ball's moving at 60 miles an hour, it's happening fast. They got to have ultimate trust. So I said, what is it to you guys? This is the first picture they brought in. This is the first test of a bulletproof vest. Okay? You say there's ultimate trust going on there? I would say there's ultimate trust. And you guys, Have that in your operating room. This is the second picture they brought in. This is a dog leading a blind dog. Okay, and so for our players, girls, they resonate more with this. We can play like the dog lovers, about half our team has dogs. But again, this is to them, this is what ultimate trust means, example of that. So can you get your nurses and people working with you that ultimate trust? If you do, it's incredibly powerful and it's awesome and everybody feels great. And ironically, the Chicago Bulls, if you watch the Last Dance documentary, they talk about ultimate trust. So again, I use this example here with the greatest coach, greatest team, talking about
the ultimate trust from Michael comes in the playoffs if you come through. I think he respected me because he knew I fought and I was competitive and I worked and I got the most out of myself, but I hadn't performed very well in the finals.
Oh, that's a good block there.
I was struggling and, I was so hard on myself. As a role player, I'd get, 5 shots a game. And so every shot took on way too much importance. Steve, be ready. He knew the camera was always on him, and I'm like oblivious.
He comes up, I'll be ready.
And then I'm like yelling back, like, I'll be ready, I'll be ready.
I know if they're gonna double team me, Steve's gonna be open.
It is Michael Jordan time. Did not have the shot.
Kerr. Essentially, you guys are hitting that game-winning shot every time you pull that up or you work with somebody. Right? So ultimate trust, very, very powerful. And the next thing we talk to our players about is what is their why. So I like that you guys are graduating today. What is your why to be an orthopedic surgeon? I told you in my next life, I'd love to be an orthopedic surgeon. You can see why, the experiences I've had and the people I've been able to meet and be around. I think it'd be awesome, but what is your why? What drives you every day? And I ask our players this and I get, oh, my mom wants me to play. We get a scholarship. Oh, this stuff's really cool. But that's not going to get you championships, pro contracts, and those things. We got to dig down, but they have trouble finding what their whys are. So I'm going to give you an example. This is our 2018, and this is Jordan Larson right here. Jordan Larson just was MVP of the Olympics, won the gold medal for the USA team this past Olympics at 35 years old. She's from Hooper, Nebraska, one stop sign town. She told me in 8th grade, she was coming to Nebraska and win a national championship. This is her, and we did, and she did, but this is her senior year. This is a team, again, we had just graduated 4 All-Americans a year before. This team had no expectations. We're in the regional tournament in Seattle. Okay, the first night we beat Michigan, and we're playing Washington in this match, who's #1 seed at Seattle, sold out. And here's what you got to know about her why. This is her senior year. Her mom, who started taking her to gyms at 2 years old, was going through breast cancer treatment. She had flown to Seattle. She saw the night before, was too sick to leave the hotel room to come see this match. We go down 0-2. I think it's over. At that point, as we say in Nebraska, the hay's in the barn. You've either done your work, and they know what they need to do, and there's not much you can do about it at that point.
Jordan Larson with an incredible kill up on the left side and received by Perry. Set up Carlson again, nice up by Larson. He goes for the kill. Pancake by Perry, a scramble, and Washington sees it go out of bounds, and the Huskers are playing perfectly in the last 3 points. 4-0 run by the Huskers in this 5th set. That's Hadlin from the back. Jordan Larson off the block. That's what she did so well in the 3rd and 4th sets, and we're seeing it here again in the 5th.
I mean, all we did was believe in each other and believe in what we could do. And we knew we could do this. I mean, it was in our hearts, and we just found a way. and this has been the story of this team this whole year.
Carlson again, this time blocked, and the defense for Nebraska getting it done in this fifth set. They are 3 points away from going to the semifinals. Washington back set for Carlson. It's off of Sydney Anderson, kept alive by Tara Mueller. Nice heads-up play. Here's Washington now again on the attack. Carlson is a block by Jordan Larson.
And we're down 9-3. If you knew everything that we've been through since January, that it gives you know, just all those emotions are running through me, that these kids can find a way to pull that out. It's just I don't know, you know, as I said last week, it's all about heart and soul of this group, and the whole country just saw what I'm talking about.
One of the best that Nebraska has ever seen serving in the fifth set, and it's a service ace. And Nebraska has done it. They were down 2 sets to none. They put together 3 in a row to win this match.
So I really thought about what the hell just happened. It was one of the greatest performances I've ever seen, one of the greatest comebacks. We'd be like we were down 4 touchdowns with 3 minutes to go in the game in football. She willed it back, and I asked her what happened. She goes, "I'm not going to let my mom miss my last match." So her why was that powerful, that she was able to single-handedly. And I showed you those clips because she's making a play almost every play in that 5th game. We're down 9-3. Coming back. So we're trying to get our people to tap into what their whys are. And if you get it, it's going to make you stronger and more powerful. All right. Last couple coaching secrets. There's 3 questions you got to ask yourself every day. Who needs me today? Somebody is going to need you every day when you get up. Can you figure out who that is, find them, and take care of it? I just know coaching my team, there's something every day. And Dr. Anderson mentioned this as well. There's something every day that's going to happen. Can you figure it out? Be proactive. Who needs you today? The second question is, would I be chosen again today to be in this job? Am I doing a good enough job that Nebraska wants to hire me back and be the volleyball coach at Nebraska? You got to ask yourself that every day. And the third question is, would I want to be coached by me today? And this is the one I fail the most at, because there's some days I know I leave practice and I'm like, God, I was a jerk today. These guys aren't going to want to play for me. And I go home and I'm just in the tank the whole night. But I want those players, when they leave practice, they can't wait to get back and have another practice and be coached by me. I got to do a good enough job that they feel that. And I want you guys to think about that, because you're working in very tense situations. It's, you know, with people that are helping you, and it's tense and there's a lot going on. But every day when they leave, you pump them up like that volleyball that's inflated, or do they leave deflated? And I got to ask myself that question every day. Do I pump our players up when they leave? Do they want to come back, or do they walk out of there deflated? That doesn't mean I'm easy on them or don't push them. It just means I got to do it in a way that inspires and motivates them to want to be better and come back. And again, Dr. Anderson did a great speech, and he talked about the feeling. Okay, I want to show you a quick glimpse of what the feeling that we're chasing, which is really a national championship point and all the little things that go on every day in practice and so on. So this is a video that I put together talking about the feeling, and if you can figure out the feeling that you're chasing every day when you get done with your day or get done with the patient.
Swing outside, Kelsey Payne, off the block and up. They did it.
That's why we work so hard to get to this point. You can't buy that. You ain't getting that in school. I want our players to appreciate the tradition, the history of our program. All out where we train at the Manny Center.
Kinsey bumps it over to Michaela Fecky. She did it! That's number 5. Nebraska wins its 5th national championship.
So I hope you're all have a feeling that you're chasing every day and you find that feeling. It makes it all worth it. Okay, I'm gonna give you, I'm a white coat today. I'm a doctor. I'm gonna give you a prescription. There's 3 bones you gotta develop. I'm trying to develop in all the youth in the state. The first bone is a backbone. Okay, we have to develop a strong backbone in our players and the kids in this state so they can stand up to challenges. They can be strong when they need to be. They can say no when they need to say no. And take that backbone into life. So we got to develop a strong backbone. The second bone we need to develop is a wishbone, because we need to teach kids to dream big. And I know you guys are dreaming big. You wouldn't be here, but set big goals. Go for it. We gotta. Again, Jordan Larson told me in 8th grade, I'm going to win a national championship and I'm going to be an Olympian from Hooper, Nebraska. So. Funny bone, I'm sorry, wishbone, dream big. And then the last bone is a funny bone, because what we're doing, we should have passion, we should enjoy it, it should be fun, we should look forward to coming to work or working on our skill every day. So those are the 3 bones we got to develop in these kids. So there's your prescription, make sure that's happening, okay? All right, again, Dr. Garvin, thank you for having me here. This is one of the greatest honors of my life. Thank you very much and congratulations. Questions? Tom. Enjoy it. Great. You win once. The boxes right now. It's Trev Alberts. He hates Creighton. You know. We lose the Creighton, we'll be fired. That's Matt.
Coach Matt Towle from the sports business here. I was just wondering if you could talk about failure just real briefly. One of the things as a parent and a surgeon that we want to kind of inspire is resilience. Just maybe your personal view and how you inspire your kids as far as responding to failure.
So it's a really good question. We now have 4 sports psychologists at the athletic department, because kids today can't handle failure. Their expectations are set so high, and the players we're recruiting and a lot of the athletes that come to Nebraska have not experienced much failure. They've been the best at everything. Then they get here in the Big Ten. I mean, it's a tough conference. And so they start experiencing failure. So what we try to instill in our players is, 1, have a growth mindset. Okay, you're going to fail in here every day. We're going to make it really hard on you and you're going to fail. But do you have a growth mindset to work through that and get better from that? We're not going to win every match, so get over it. But I've got a kid, Lindsay Krause, went to Omaha Scott. She won 4 straight state championships. They lost like 1 or 2 matches. Kelly Hunter, who I just hired was at Papillion High School. They went 3 years without losing a match, #1 in the nation, 2 years in a row. So they get here and we get our butts kicked, and they're like, what? They think the world's coming to an end. So we have to work really hard at that. It's a big problem. And I think if you looked, probably Dr. Garvin, Anderson, myself, I mean, we probably failed a lot growing up. And, but these kids are protected today. And, so I'm not sure that's answering your question, but it's a big issue. And we kind of need to wait. We need to let kids fail as they're growing up to fix this. I do see a change coming in this new generation we're recruiting. I'm really excited about our group of kids now and the kids coming in the next 2 years. For a while there, it was really hard coaching, and I just saw so many kids struggle. But now you throw in, the other part of this is the social media part. They're all perfect on social media, and now if the more perfect they are, they're getting money to get paid for it with NIL deals. So they live in this false world that isn't reality. And so we're working really hard on that. And again, these are all the things I talk about: with each other, for each other. What is your why? Do you surround yourself a team within a team? We're trying to instill those things in them. Instead of like, what do I look, how many followers do I have on Instagram, you know, and how pretty do I look in this picture? And if you follow these athletes, and our team is the most followed social media team in the country in women's sports. And if you follow these guys, you'll just see some of the things that they do. I mean, it blows my mind. But this is the world they live in, and now they can make money doing it. And so it's a real challenge. And then you throw in the failure part, they struggle with it, and we got to work them through that.
Can you speak, how do you get buy-in from players? Because they're all super talented and some of them aren't going to see the court probably like they hope to.
Yeah.
How do you keep those kids engaged to not say, I'm going to go someplace?
Yeah, it's we try to get them to buy into our culture. At some point, you're going to have an opportunity. Every day you get to compete in here, and if you're the best, you're going to play. And then we outline, okay, you say, well, what do I have to do to play? Great, here's what you got to do to play. So it takes a lot of work. It's a lot of building relationships with them, that they have that trust and they believe in what we're doing. And we've had players that have been All-Americans, and we've had players that have gone through our program that have loved every minute of it. In fact, I'll just give you one example. Maggie Griffin grew up in St. Charles, outside Chicago, very wealthy family, played in a great club, was all everything, comes to Nebraska, doesn't play. Role player, whole career. She gives her senior speech, gets offered 3 financial corporations on the mile drive in Chicago, goes to work for, I don't know, Smith Barney or one of those as a financial analyst thing. 3 months later, she calls me. She goes, Coach, I miss it. Can I come back and be a volunteer? I go, great, come on back. She now has started a volleyball club in Lincoln. She has a 12-court facility, and she's ready to build another facility. So there's an example I'm giving you. She didn't get all the awards and all that, but she got the experience, and she wants to stay with volleyball. That's one of our very proud success stories that I can share with you. And if they're not happy now, it takes them 30 seconds. They click in the portal and they can transfer. So I tell my coaches, every day is recruiting. We have to recruit our current team. We've got to recruit our future team. Every day, we got to recruit everybody. So it never stops. And I really believe that now. We can't assume somebody's happy and we got to build those relationships, coach them, and give them what they need. So it takes more work, but I got 2 really talented young assistants that have got the energy to do it. And I've had to work a lot harder at those relationship parts as well. I mean, we got a little walk on from Norris. I mean, if she made me a cake for my birthday, I make that kid feel like an all-star every day. She's never going to be an All-American, but I make her feel very, very valued part of our team and a very important part. Any other questions?
Don't be shy. I'm sure there's some questions out there.
Question for
You
you.
recognize one of your players here?
Oh, Anna, when'd you walk in? Oh, okay. I was gonna call you because I want you to talk to our team. We can do that later. Well, here's one of my former players that her career went good, bad, and she's now a doctor. So, and your daughter's playing volleyball, right? Yeah.
Coach, when you're playing at the highest level and a lot of your teams perform their best in the most stressful situations, is that something you can teach, or is that something that's just innate to the player?
We train it every day. So we put them in situations that they don't think they can get out of. We put them in pressure situations that they have to work through. Right now, they're with my strength coach. I'll give you an example. So do you know what a gasser is? So it's up and back twice. They got to do it under a certain time, and they repeat it. You go into your max VO2 system, you feel it. We take a box. Anna's done this. You remember? You remember this? We take a box, we put 12 items in it. Okay? Guys, you get 30 seconds, look at the items, memorize them. Now we're start doing gassers. And then we come back and we pick one person. They got to name all 12 things. So again, we're working on, I'm not worried about how this gasser is going to make me feel. I got to remember this right here. So we call that staying in the moment. Okay? You got to be in the moment, focus on the next point, and not worry about everything else. And then we have a sports psychologist that helps train that too, the mindfulness part. They have big words for it. I just say, hey, it's the next point, stay in the moment. Yeah.
The people who are leaving here are going from, from one environment into a new environment. And in my career, everything has been about teamwork. So what kind of advice can you give to the people who are leaving, to go off and do their fellowships and whatever, and how to blend into it and make a team really work?
Yeah, what I would, so we have new players coming in every summer, and this is what we talk about with our team. We call it BDR, build deeper relationships. So you gotta connect with them right away. And so for our players, the mill is one of our best recruiting. You guys been, the mill is? It's one of our best recruiting deals. They meet there for coffee, and these guys drink coffee like in the afternoon. They'll go there and meet in the afternoon, but they're meeting and talking and socializing. And remember, kids today, they don't socialize. They're on their phones. They don't sit down and talk. So that's one thing, is build relationships and take the time to do it. It'll pay off. It's a great investment. And then two, prove that you're a team player, and we have another saying, it's called we over me. Is it about you or is it about the team? And I'll give you an example of that. Let's say Anna has a great night, gets a bunch of kills, gets written up in the paper. I'm going to read that article. If she said, I did this, and I did this, her butt's in my office. I've got all the I's circled. I go, is this about you or is it about your team? And so we talk about and preach that we over me. It's about Nebraska volleyball, and you gotta buy into the team. So if these guys are going to new places, Jason's going to San Diego. Hey, I'm all about the Sports Institute or this surgery center, whatever they call it out there. I'm all about this. I'm going to make this place great. I'm going to help, and just investing in that teamwork part of it and the people you work with. But it takes time. It takes energy. And sometimes, I just got to do my thing. And that's the other big thing. But in the sport of volleyball, if I don't make a good pass and we have a good setter, Anna can't get kills. I don't care how good she is. So it's a real teamwork game. And that's why we got the patent on with each other, for each other. This is how we roll here. And again, it's building a culture. And if you go somewhere where there is no culture, maybe be the first one to start building it.